Okay. Today we're going to start with Rav Nachman. Nachman Ashkechela, Rav Ada Barav. It's on Mem Beis Amud Aleph. It's a little over halfway down. The page. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's less of our learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. It starts like this. Rav Nachman Ashkechela, Rav Ada Barav, Rami Chutei. Nachman, he finds Rav Ada Barava that's putting in tzitzis into his garment. Kamavarich lasis tzitzis, and he's making a bracha sherka deshanov mitzvah vitzivano lasis tzitzis to make tzitzis. He commanded us to make tzitzis. Amalei, Nachman says to Rav Ada Barava, "My tzitzi shemana." What is this tzitzi? He's mocking him. It's like, what are you saying? This bracha, I hear tzitzi. So he responds, 1 second, before he responds, he say, Achya Marav, tzitzis ain't tzricha bracha. Rav Nachman tells him, you don't have to make a bracha when you make tzitzis, you make a bracha when you put on the tzitzis. So Kinach Nafshei de Rav Huna, after Rav Huna passed away, Rav Huna was a student of Rav, Al Rav Chisda Lemir made the Rav ad Rav. So Rav Chisda came in to ask a kasha in a contradiction in the words of Rav. So it says, Umiyam Rav, tzitzis ain't tzricha bracha. Rav says tzitzis doesn't require a bracha. But it means the making of tzitzis. You don't have to say a bracha when you make the tzitzis. But Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, we introduce the question with like this statement, and then ultimately it's going to lead to a question. How do we know that if a non-Jew makes tzitzis that it's pasul? Shenemar Dabral b'nei Yisrael v'asalam tzitzis. Speak to the Jewish people and make tzitzis. So very very clearly, b'nei Yisrael yasu v'lo yavid kechavim yasu. Jewish people make the tzitzis, not non-Jewish people make the tzitzis. There was a concern that they have like tzitzis from Israel, that they had Arab workers or something because of the labor could be cheaper to get them to. Anyway, yeah. But the problem is, I'm a second. So what's the contradiction here? Well, my room, yeah. So what's the contradiction? Amar Rav Yosef, Kasav Rav Chisda, Kol mitzvah sheksher b'ayvut kechavim, Yisrael ain't tzarich levarich. Kol mitzvah shepsula b'ayvut kechavim, Yisrael tzarich levarich. Contradiction is as follows. On one hand, Rav says that you don't make a bracha when you make tzitzis. On the other hand, Rav says that this is a mitzvah that needs to be made by a Jew. That would mean that any mitzvah that's can only be made by a Jew, not by a non-Jew, you make a bracha when you make it. On one hand, Rav is telling us that you don't make a bracha. On the other hand, Rav is telling us that you do make a bracha. Yeah, you hear the problem? Follow the contradiction. The Gemara says, "Uklalahu." Is that the rule that if a non-Jew can't do this, then the Jew doing it makes a bracha? And if a non-Jew can do it, then you don't make a bracha? Is that the rule? Is that what's happening? Uklalahu, brei mila d'ksher b'ayvut kechavim. But what about a bris mila? A non-Jew can do a bris. The Tanya, it says in a brayse here, Shem Bereife, a city that doesn't have a doctor, and doctor over here means a mile, doesn't have a mile. Yisrael, Shem Bereife Yisrael, V'yesh Bereife Aramai, Bereife Kuti. But there's no Jewish doctor in there. Is there a doctor in the house, right? Right. Remember that? The guy shouting, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And they said, "Yeah, I'm a doctor." He says, "Do I have a daughter for you?" Right. Yeah.
That was Spirit Airlines.
What is that?
That's also a joke on Spirit Airlines.
Uh-huh. So far, we're learning that the non-Jew can do the. We're not talking. We didn't discuss the bracha. We didn't discuss the bracha yet. All we're discussing right now is we came up with the policy that if a non-Jew can do it, then you don't make a bracha. If a Jew, only a Jew can do it, then you do say a bracha. So the problem is right now that we're saying that how can you have a rule like this? We find by a circumcision, a bris, that a non-Jew can do a bris, and we're also going to find that when you do a bris, you make a bracha. Second, if a non-Jew can do a bris, then how can you make a bracha? Rav's rule is that if a non-Jew does it, then there's no bracha, right? Right, right, right. It's not such a strong question because he commanded us. It's fine. So, no, the mitzvah was for us, but who does it could be maybe the non-Jew can do it. That's we can resolve. So it says over here we're learning that if there's no Jewish doctor, but there's an Aramean doctor, and the Kuti doctor, yeah. So the Tanakam over here says, or Reb Meir says that Yamal Aramai. You should use the Aramean doctor, Val Yamal Kuti, and don't use the Kuti doctor. The Kuti doctor would be doing a bris. You see, the Aramean, they don't do a bris. So if they do a bris, they're doing it for whatever. They're doing a bris, but there's no religious observance in the bris. The Kuti, they do a bris, and there is a religious observance in doing the bris. And they were concerned that they're not doing it for Hashem, they're doing it for they had a god an idol that they put on top of Mount Gerizim, some sort of bird, and it's a concern that they're doing it for the.
There's a whole thing that we learned that for nursing like a baby or something. I don't know, like
Yeah.
They're concerned that they're going to kill the baby or something.
Yeah, that's going to come up soon. Okay. Not the nursing part, but the bris part. So Yamal Aramai, use a Aramai, don't use a Kuti. Now, obviously, you're allowed to use a non-Jew. Different Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda says Kuti v'lei Aramai. Rabbi Yehuda says no, better to use the Kuti, not to use Aramai, because the Aramean is concerned that he may kill the baby. Now, both of them are agreeing that you can use a non-Jewish doctor to do a bris. And nevertheless, when a Jew does a bris, you make a bracha damar mar, because the master taught Hamal loimer Baruch Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvayse v'tzivanu alamila. You say Baruch Hashem Elkeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvayse v'tzivanu alamila. Make a bracha. So what's going on with this rule of Rav that if a non-Jew can do it, you don't say a bracha? My answer is Midihu Taima Ela LaRav. You're asking a kasha on Rav by quoting this brisa. It's not a kasha on Rav because according to Rav, the rule works because Rav Mifsal Pasal. Rav says that if a non-Jew does a bris, it's not valid. Ditzmar, as it was, we have a statement. How do we know that if a non-Jew does a bris, it's pasal? That you should guard my covenant, referring to the Jew. Only someone we're going to learn over here. Well, Rabbi Yechanan says himal yimal. It says you should surely be circumcised. The Gemara learns from that. Rabbi Yechanan says hamal yimal. Someone that's circumcised should circumcise. Okay, so now what happens now? According to Rav, only someone that can do the bris, only a Jew can do a bris, and therefore the bracha makes sense. So we do have a rule that if a non-Jew can do it, then you don't say a bracha. Comes back as we're left with our contradiction in Rav that we said that you don't say a bracha on tzitzis, but we also have a statement that tzitzis is possible if it's made by a non-Jew. Really, you should be making bracha when you make it. Okay, let's go further. Let's see. Sukkah misayayale tefillin habitiyufta. Now, this concept of a non-Jew doing it and making and then not making a bracha, or a Jew, only a Jew being allowed to do it, and yes, making bracha. We have a support for this from Rav Chisda, and we have a support for this from this side of Rav Chisda. We have a from Sukkah, and we have a kasha from Tefillin. It says like this: Hari Sukkah the ksher by b'kechavim. A sukkah, a non-Jew can build a sukkah. The Tanya, we have a brisa, sukkah saves kechavim, sukkah nashim, sukkah speima, sukkah skutim. This is called sukkah ganvach in the Gemara in Sukkah. It says in the Gemara, it really says sukkahs goyim. A sukkah of a non-Jew, or an idolater, a sukkah of a woman, a sukkah for animals, a sukkah of kutim. All of these sukkahs are kshera, the Gemara says. Sukkah. Balvad shetei mesucheches kel chasa. It'll be Yisrael in tzarich levarach, and you don't have to make a bracha. So we said that sukkah is a support for Rav Chisda, that a non-Jew can do it, and you don't make a bracha. Very good. The Tanya, it's taught in a brayso. It's a sukkah latzma. If someone makes a sukkah, Aimer, all he says is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shechianu v'kimanu v'genu l'zman hazeh. You only say shechianu. You don't say a bracha when you make it. But leishaba, when you come to sit in it, then Aimer Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu mitzvaysev v'tzivanu leisha b'sukkah. Then you say leisha b'sukkah. So you don't make a bracha when you make it. Why? Because it can be made by a non-Jew. Yeah, well, it's a little confusing because it says Chag HaSukkos Tasalacha. It says you should make the holiday of Sukkot. It's a little confusing. You could. There is an opinion that the mitzvah is to make the sukkah. When we say the bracha, then it's whatever the case is. We don't say a bracha in making the sukkah because well, it fits with this that a non-Jew can make the sukkah. Now, what's the kasha from tefillin? However, tefillin tiyufti, but from tefillin we have a problem. Because with tefillin, the psulis b'avid kechavim, a non-Jew is not allowed to make tefillin that's made by a non-Jew is possible. The Tani Rav Chinina, Rei de Rava, the Pashranya.
Amen.
Says like this: Sefer Torah tefillin mezuzah shekas from Tzeduki. A Sefer Torah tefillin and mezuzah that was written by a Tzeduki. Now, there's another Gersia that says a min. Min would mean like an early Christian or something. They switched it. The censor switched it to Tzeduki. Aikuti, Ayav Kechavim, Ayav Rayisha V'Katan, Mumar, Zol Psulin. Good. Tzeduki, Kuti, and Idalta. Now, on the word Tzeduki, do they have a note? Okay. What he's going to say is, he's going to say, and then this is 42b. Yeah. Yeah, he says written by Milzo, written by a heretic. There's the N over here. Oh yeah, he's much more honest. It appears Rashi's version of the text referred to priests. From other sources, it's clear that means Christian priests. Although the same halach would apply to all Gentiles, Christian priests are mentioned because they studied the Bible, were generally literate. According to the standard version of the text, the reference here is to Jewish idol worshiper, or according to the Rambam, a Jew denies fundamental Jew. Listen to this. According to the Koran version, it's a heretic, a Samaritan, a Gentile, a Canaanite slave, a woman, a minor, or a Jewish apostate. Although it is clear that this term refers to one who converted from Judaism to another religion, its etymology remains uncertain. The Gaonim explained that there's a slightly abridged version of the term Meshuamad, whose root Ayin Mem Daled connotes baptism in Aramaic, and there's also a pejorative reference to a chamber pot. It seems that Gentile scholars concurred with this understanding because censored editions of the Talmud replace this word with the term transgressor, a mumar. Yeah. Yeah, so he gives us everything that no one else will say. Whatever the case is, all of these the tefillin's going to be pasul. Shenemar ukshartam uchsavtam. says that you will write. It says you will tie the tefillin and you will write it. Kol sheyeshnei, you will write the mezuzah. Kol sheyeshnei b'kshira, anyone that has an obligation to tie it, which means it's a Jewish person that has to put on tefillin. Yeshnei b'ksiva is able to write it. Kol she'ena b'kshira, anyone that's not putting it on, ena b'ksiva is not, can't write it. And nevertheless, Yisrael ein tzarich levarich. Nevertheless, the Jew that makes it doesn't say a bracha when he makes it, when he writes the tefillin. The Shalach Rav Chia Breder Rav Huna Mishmei Rav Yechanan, Rav Chia, the son of Rav Huna, sent in the name of Rav Yechanan al tefillin shal yad aimer. When you put on the tefillin shal yad, you say Baruch Hashem Kedushan Mitzvos V'Tzivanu Laniach tefillin. Right? Command us to place the tefillin. Al tefillin shal reish aimer Baruch Hashem Kedushan Mitzvos V'Tzivanu Mitzvos tefillin. Interesting. We had one pshat in Rashi that you only say this bracha if you speak. Whatever the case is, maybe it's a raya, maybe it's not a raya. We had the machlekes Rashi and Binatam. But it doesn't say that you make a bracha when you make the tefillin. It only says when you put on the arm, you say this. When you put on the head, you say that. But there's no bracha lasis tefillin. Problem is that if a non-Jew is not allowed to do it, there should be a bracha when we do it. That was what Rav Chisda was developing here. Rather, the reason must be kol mitzvah das yasa gemar mitzvah. We're going to adjust it. If the mitzvah is the conclusion of the mitzvah, if the making it is the conclusion of the mitzvah, kagain mila, but there's nothing that you do after you do the bris, and that's the mitzvah. So, even if it is kosher with a non-Jew, but b'Yisrael tzarich levarach, when a Jew does it, he says a bracha. Kol mitzvah das yasa lav gemar mitzvah. But if the making it is not the conclusion of the mitzvah, you're just preparing it to be able to perform the mitzvah, getting tefillin. Even though a non-Jew is not allowed to do it, not allowed to make it, but Yisrael ain't tzarich levarach. But a Jew doesn't have to say v'tzivanu lases. However, now is where it gets interesting because we had sort of a contradiction by tzitzis. But tzitzis b'hakamiflagi. By tzitzis, we have two ways of understanding tzitzis. One way of understanding tzitzis is that the mitzvah is when you put the tzitzis on. That would mean that the making of the tzitzis is not the mitzvah, not the conclusion of the mitzvah. The other way of understanding it is that the tzitzis is a chayvas beged. It's not you have to have tzitzis on it even if you're not wearing it, even if you're keeping it in the closet. You still need tzitzis on it because the garment needs tzitzis. So now this comes out very interesting. Mar Sava Rav Chisda would hold tzitzis chayvas talasim. The tzitzis is an obligation on the talis, and therefore, once you make it, that's already you completed the mitzvah, even before you put it on. So therefore, you should have to say a bracha. Mar Savar, but Reb Nachman that was saying, "What's my tzitzi? What are you saying a bracha when you're making the tzitzis, right?" Reb Nachman chayvas gabru. The mitzvah is only when you put it on, and making of the tzitzis is not the mitzvah. Okay. Comes out like a lamdish teretz over here. Amalei Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi. Mordechai says to Rav Ashi, this is the end of the Talmudic period. Atun hachi masnisalu. You learned what Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav that a guy that makes tzitzis is puzzle. So therefore, you had a contradiction. But anan hachi masnila. We learned it different. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. Our statement was Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav. Minayin letzitzis b'ayvit kechavim shekshera. How do we know that a non-Jew that makes tzitzis that it's kosher? Shneimar darbal b'nei Yisrael va'asu lahem tzitzis. Sheyasu lahem acherim. It says va'asu. Va'asu means and it will be made. It doesn't say v'yasu that they will make. Va'asu means and it will be made. It's passive, which means that others can make it for them. We just need the end result. Va'asu lahem, speak to the Jewish people. Va'asu lahem tzitzis, and tzitzis should be made for them. Means that even a non-Jew can make tzitzis. Yeah. Right. No, this is not the halacha there.
Asu is not really passive, is it? It's not asu. It's asu. Maybe asu lahem. Maybe that's saying to them.
So asu would mean they made, or asu would mean they will make, right?
Yeah.
So what happened to the yud? Asu. Because the vav, it's a vav hipach.
Mm.
Bye-bye. How's the Gemara learning this?
Yeah, I see here in the corner that it says the focus on the Lahim. It
Oh,
doesn't
really?
say.
It's not the Vasu, it's the Lahem. Okay. Okay, Shekach. So the Lahem, Va'asu Lahem, for them, as opposed to Lachem. Yeah? As opposed to Lachem. Lachem, it should have been Lachem, to you. Make for and speak to the Jewish people, and they no, it's not Lachem. Speak to the Jewish people, and they will make for them tzitzis. So how are we getting that? Even if a non-Jew makes it,
So somebody's making for the Jewish people. So it
uh-huh,
seems like even if it's
uh-huh. And how would it be for themselves? All right. Okay. The Malbim would explain this better.
No, it's very simple. Vasulachem is you make for yourself. Vasulahem, that would mean that it will be made for you. It's not exclusively by you.
Uh-huh.
That's why
what
the
is
emphasis. Vasulahem means that it will be made for you.
Uh-huh.
Vasulachem, that's more of a directive that you should be the one that should be making it for you.
So
You should.
does the word vasu become passive? Like
Vasu is passive, but it's vasu is it's not you doing it, but it should be made for you. But who should be making it for you?
I
So
thought
lahem,
vasu
he's right. Lahem,
uh-huh.
Moshe, do you mean
if it just said vasu, and that would make and you make
Okay.
that could be. But when you say vasu lahem, that means that someone else will be making it for you.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also, that the fact that there's added Laham.
Right. Okay. Nishakayach. Rav Yehuda Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav Asa Menachos. Okay. Gonna learn about Lishma over here. The tzitzis I have to be hanging off the garment, right? So kaitzim are thorn type threads that are sticking off at the end of the garment. How did these threads get there? They're the end of the garment. Minanimin. Nimin are other types of threads that are sticking out because of some sort of embroidery. Minagradin is actually the threads that are sticking out from the end of the weaving. So these are types of threads that happen to be in the garment, that not because of tzitzis. In the garment either because the weaving wasn't complete, or because you did some embroidery and you have or some stitches there. And so there's threads that are sticking out. And now you took those threads and you made them into tzitzis. You tied a few knots on them and whatever, and you did some chulias. So psula, all of those are pasul. Because you didn't make the tzitzis lishma. You didn't put it in lishma. Maybe you tied a knot lishma, but they weren't placed into the garment lishma. Minasisin, but if you made it from, this is like balls of thread that wasn't woven lishma. You happen to have balls of thread in the house, those little things of thread. So that's going to be kshera. Now, who said this? This was said by Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. Now, Rav Yehuda was a student of Rav, but Rav passed away. And Rav Yehuda went to Shmuel. So Rav Yehuda says, Shmuel. When I went to Shmuel and I told him what Rav said, that these three are pasul and this one is kosher. So Amar, Shmuel told me that af minasisim psula, I hold that even from balls of thread, it's going to be pasul. The bin and tefillah lishma, because the thread itself needs to be spun lishma. Not just that it needs to be put into the tzitzis lishma. You have to make the strings lishma. Be careful when you buy strings. You can't just go to a store, according to Shmuel, buy white strings and put it in your tzitzis and say, I did it. You have to actually buy the tzitzis in a Judaica store that says on it, made with lishma, spun lishma. It's clear.
Yeah, thrown that's clear.
Okay, Kitanai. This is actually a machlekes Tanaim. It's machlekes Rabbi Shmuel. It's a machlekes. It says tzipan zav. Let's say you took tefillin and you covered it in gold. You should tell aleim or behemoth meya psulas. Or if you put on top of it, like as a case over the bottom, you put over it. You put the skin of a non-kosher animal. It's puzzle. What about or behemoth tahira? Let's say a kosher animal, then it's ksheris. Even though you didn't make it lishma. Wow, that would fit with Rav. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Afar behemoth tahira psulas ad she'avdim lishma. He says that no. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that you have to, even if it's a kosher animal, it's still not good. Just because it says kosher on it doesn't mean that it was made lishma for the sake of tefillin. It was made for the shoe business, the belt business. Okay. No, that's just the protection. It's not the tefillin itself. Amar le'abayel or Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yehuda. This must be a different Shmuel. Amar le'abayel Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yehuda. Hot techelta hechit tzavala. How do you make? We're going to get a little more details than we expected. But how do you make tchelas in the tzitzis? Amar le Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda says to Abaya, my sina and dam chilazin. You bring the blood of this chilazin, the samanim, and some types of herbs. Let me read it from here. Some interesting stuff. Okay, you put them into a pot and you boil them up. Shaklin purta bebeyasa. You take a little drop and you put it in an eggshell. And now vitamin lahu bu'udra. Vitamin lahu means you taste it, but it actually means you test it. You give it a little, like a test. You're testing it to see if the dye works. Udra is a small piece of wool. However, once you do the test to see if the dye works, if you get the right color, then you have to take the eggshell that had the little bit of dye, and you can't pour it back in. You have to throw it away. You have to take the wool that you dyed and also throw that away. Okay. Umar says, okay, very interesting. Mamina class. We learned from this 3 things. It's not going to end up with 3, but we start off, we say, we learned 3 halachas from this. First of all, Shmamina Tima Psula. First of all, we learn that the testing, if it was used for testing, then the rest of it is puzzle. Can't use it again. That's what we said. You have to throw it out. Yeah. Shmamina, we also learned the binan tzvil shma, that you have to dye it for the sake of the mitzvah, not for testing. Well, if you're dyeing it for testing, then it doesn't work. Shmamina te'ima pasla. We also learned that if you did test it. Oh, so there's 2 things. Te'ima psula means that if it was dyed with intention to test, that's pasul. Te'ima pasla means that once you'd used this for testing, you pasuled everything else. Gemara asks, Hainu te'ima psula, hainu tzvil lishma. Why are you dividing this into 3 things? It's the same thing. Why is it pasul? Because it wasn't lishma. So you're telling me it needs to be lishma. Plus, it also, if you test it, it's the same thing. Ravashi says ma tam kama. It's not really 3 things. Ma tam tima psula. Why is it that if you test it, it's pasul mishum debina tzvil lishma, because it needs to be dyed lishma.
So why are we testing in the first place?
Well, you have to do one. You have to test it to see if it works. Right?
Okay,
How do you know when the cake is done if you don't take a taste?
You're not taking the entire thing. You're taking whatever.
A little bit, yeah.
By the way, this is hysterical. In terms of guys talking about like how to make something, take a little bit, no measurements. You ask a woman, they would be precise measurements. 4 cups.
Not in the olden days. No, my wife told me that her grandmother made cookies, and then she, her high school or one class was making a cookbook. She said she wanted to put in that recipe. She said, how much do you put in? She said, a handful of this, a thing of that. You pour it in, oil, put it in.
Also the measuring.
This is how much I need to write. Is it a cup? Is it a Put in like the right amount. Right. Right. Okay. Kitanai.
Somehow they always came out like this.
Kitanai. This is actually a machlekes tanaim about testing if it makes everything puzzle. The ima psula, testing it is puzzle. The part that was used to test is puzzle. Mishum shenemar klil techeles. What do we learn from klil techeles? Means it must klil means entirely techeles. Rashi said something on this. Klil techeles. Kol techeles beinan she kol ikar marach chilasim b'tzemer shlei davarachet tzvoa ba mitchilasa. No. 1 second. Was that Zion? It has to be entirely used for the tzitzis. That's what we're understanding. Divri Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. Rabbi Yochanan ben Davai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Davai, he says, this is in a brisa, he says, Afilu mara sheni shebakasher. Shnemar, ushni telas. Ushni telas means the red thread. Shni is the thread and telas is the color red, scarlet. So here we're learning that even if it sounds like marasheni shaba. Marasheni means like you dyed something and from that the dye went into something else. Like you put it in the dryer and ends up coloring other. Even the marasheni, even the next color, this was used once, now using it again, or maybe in the same pot, in the same thing. You dip the first thing in. We said if you dip the first one in for testing, then after that the whole thing is possible. Even marasheni, even the second dip is going to be kosher. So it's a machlekes here, and he says, how do we know this? It says because it says ushni telas. Shni means the thread, but it can also mean the second one. Second one of red, so it means that it could be used twice. Tanrabanan. Says that tchelas can't be checked to see if it's good. And therefore, you have to buy it from a mumcha. See in a moment what we're referring to here. Yeah, Rashi says that it means tchelas ein labedika means that you can't test it if it's tchelas or kala ilan. According to this opinion, kala ilan was that fake vegetable-based blue. So ein labedika. So how do you know? How do you know if it's good? So you don't know. You have to buy it from someone that made it properly. You have to buy it from a mumcha, from an expert. Tefillin yesh lam bedika, but tefillin you can see if it's written properly. You open up and you check. But also you have to buy it from an expert. So why you have to buy it from an expert? The problem is because of lishma, because you don't know about if the parchment was what's it called? Was tanned. If the tanning was done lishma. Svarim umezuzas yesh lam bedika v'nikachim mikol adam. However, sifrei Torah and mezuzas, those you can check them and you can buy them from anyone. We're not concerned about that. Okay. Yeah, we have that before, right? Yeah, it's the same thing. But we're saying about what's left in the eggshell you can't use. Right? That's what we were talking about before also. What's left in the eggshell becomes puzzle. So tchelas ein labedika. You can't check if it's tchelas or if it's kala ilan. Rabbi Yitzchak Breder Rabbi Yehuda Badaklei. But Rabbi Yitzchak Breder Rabbi Yehuda, he did check it, and we have the way of checking it. It says siman begeshem. This is going to be the ingredients and how to test it. It says Maisi Magvaya Gila. Let's see. You bring a type of clay.
Excuse me. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Magvaya Gila means, it says alum. Alum. Let's see what they say over here. Magvaya is an ancient Akkadian word for alum. Gila means a straw.
Where are Maimonides?
Gila apparently refers to clay or earth. The Rambam holds that Magvaya Gila refers to straw, which is how the word Gila is used in Targum. Gila means a straw. Okay. You're taking one ingredient. And Umaya de Shavlilisa. And you're also taking water of Shavlilisa, which he translates here as fenugreek. Is that what you have also in Artscroll?
Yeah.
Use it called Tilson. Okay. And the Meme Raglayim, and also use urine, which is like astringent. Ben Arbaim Yaim, which is 40 days old. Okay, so you leave it around for 40 days. And Vitari Lebegavayim Yortavat Safra. And you let the wool soak in this mixture, in these ingredients, from night until morning, from Ortat Safra, I guess 12 hours. Now, you have to take a look at like this. Iparit Chazu say, if the color fades, so then psula, then it's not real. Iparit Chazu say, if it didn't fade, then we know that it's kshera, we know that it's real tchelas. We're going to have, it's not so simple. He says exactly the opposite. But we'll take a look, 1 second. He has different ingredients and it comes out with the opposite result. He says, Maisi Chamira Arkasa. Chamira is kol chamira, like any leaven. So Chamira Arkasa means hard arkasa, which is leavened barley.
Woo!
And Chamira Arkasa desari, leavened barley. But afila begave. And you bake the wool inside together with this leaven. You know, you put the sourdough, you put it inside, you bake it together. Anyway, now you're putting wool in. So ishtani lamal yusa, if it becomes better, then it's going to be kosher. Legrayusa, if it gets worse, then psula, then it's pasul. I thought it was going to work the other way. The simanech, and the way to remember this is shino yesheker. If it changes, then it's a lie. Shino yemes. Changes, then it's true. So how does that work? Basically the change reveals if it's a liar or if it's true. So now we said, so the Gemara says, so how do we know what did we mean before that? Now we have a kasha. You said before that you can't check it. What are you telling me? Of course you can check it. You just had these two things that you check. So what does it mean that you can't check it? You can't check if it was used for testing. I don't know what he did with it before. He tests it once, it's finished. Right? He passed it. That you can't test. You can't test what he did with it. Anyway, Mar, that's his name. Mimashche, that's also a name of a place. I see Techelta b'shnei Rabachai. He brought Techeles in the time of Rabachai. Maybe it's in the time of the Gainim, I wonder. Can't tell if it's Lishma, right? So the things that need to be Lishma, yeah, we were saying that mezuzahs and Sifrei Torah don't need to be tan Lishma. Only tefillin needs to be tan Lishma. Yeah.
That time.
Oh, they didn't have Tchelas during Rabachai, so that was afterwards. I understood that one of the Roman emperors outlawed that color wool. They said it was a royal wool and it wasn't for commoners. So it's very hard to get a hold of. I saw that someone made a video on this and it was explaining this. Yeah. It was I forget it, but they found like the rules of Justinian or one of the emperors. Anyway, so Rabachai would be later, and he said they didn't have tchelas. Anyway, he brings tchelas. So, but Kua b'Rav Yitzchak b'Rav Yehuda, they used the first test of Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yehuda, which was the fenugreek and the urine. And what happened was, it didn't come out good. The color faded. However, with the Ravada, they did the other test with the sourdough, Bistanil Malyusa, and it actually improved. So several of the they tried both tests on it. They thought one of them worked, one of them didn't work. So they sent it to two different labs, and they said, misafik, we should say that it's going to be puzzle. Amalu Rav Achai says, no. What's going on? It's not tchelis and it's not kalilan either, because it improved when you baked it. Rather, you have to understand this, that you have to do both of them. If you do the first one, if you do Rabbi Yitzchak, you put it with the urine and the fenugreek, and it improves, then you don't have to do anything else. But if it doesn't improve, then you have to try the next one and see what happens in the next one. If the next one it improves, so then it's still good. Then it's good. Okay, that's what it means. Shmosa adadi yitma, that they were taught together. That means you try this, and it's like a flowchart. This, right? You end up in the parking lot. Right. Which means that if you check with Rabbi Yitzchak Beider Rav Yehuda, and which was the fenugreek and the urine, say if it doesn't retranslate that, if it doesn't fade, so then kshera, then it's good. You're good to go. You don't have to do the next check. But if it does, then but kinle b'derav ada b'chamira, because they use that sourdough. If it improves, then kshera l'gresa, then it's psula. Shalchamitam, they sent from Eretz Yisrael. They said that Shmos Adad Yitma, these two were said together, that you have to do the testing together. You don't. It's not two independent tests. Not like two labs. It's two steps in the same lab. Rav Mani Dayak Kazavim Kechumrei Masnisa. Rav Mani was careful, and Zavin means he bought or he sold. Zavein is he bought, according to what the Brisa says, which is what? That once it's tested, you can't use it anymore. So you have to buy it from an expert. Amalei Usava, so this elder says to him, yeah, you see Daniel, another Sava, Bachi Avid Kamaid Kamach Ba'atzlach Eskayo. He says that's the way the people before you did, and they were very successful in their business. That's what it sounds like. Iskayu, their businesses were successful. It has to do with business. Says on the notes, it says, this accordance with the Gemara and Psachim, that those who sell tchelas or engage in the work of heaven for a profit do not see a sign of blessing from their labor. But if they engage in it with the sake of heaven, they see the blessing. Okay. Woo! It's quoting another Gemara that's saying that this helps the business. Tana Rabbanan. Starting the Brisa. Is this Gemara? We're done with the herbs. Talis Mitzias Minashuk. Someone buys a talis already made. Yeah, like you buy in the Judaica store. So Mi Yisrael or Bechaskas, if you buy from a Jew, buy it in Aspaklaria, so then it's kosher. Woo! If you buy it from a non-Jew, min a tagar, from a merchant, then kshera. So it depends. Min ha'ovid kechavim, you have to see. If it's min a tagar, then it's kshera. But if it's min a hedyet, then it's not every non-Jew is going to work. If it's from the merchant, so then the merchant goes and he buys from a Jew. However, if you buy it from a hedyet, just from a regular common non-Jew, then it's psula. Then it's puzzle. What was that Russian expression?
That
I'm also a. They asked him, how do you make the tefillin? It was a non-Jew that had tefillin. He says, I'm a shoemaker. I forget it was Russian, because the Rebbe said the story. I forget the expression, the Rebbe used it. Okay. So then it's psula. Because maybe it was died, not lishma. Afapi shamru, even though we said, Ein Rashai limka talis mitzias levid kuchav machiyat tzitzisa. There's 1 second. How did he get a hold of it? Yeah, you're not allowed to sell a talis that's already made to a non-Jew. You're not. So my time. What's the reason? The reason is Hacha Tergimo. There's a few interpretations here. One reason is Mishum Zaina. Two interpretations, classic interpretations here. One interpretation is that if there was a Jewish prostitute woman, she wouldn't want to live with a non-Jew, but the non-Jew shows up wearing a talis. So he must be Jewish, so she would live with him. And we have a decree, therefore you're not allowed to give a talis here. In order for this woman shouldn't end up with a non-Jew, we have a decree that you can't give a talis, tzitzis, to a non-Jew. Another pshat is, that that when the non-Jew gives the talis to a Zaina, a non-Jewish Zaina, that whoever he lives with, but she thinks that she lived with the Jew, and that creates a bad name about the Jew, right? Follow? It's two interpretations here. Rav Yehuda Amar Shema Yislava Yimei Baderech V'Yargenu. We don't want him to look Jewish because he may fake it. He may come in and he could accompany him on the road and then kill him, or he could show up in shul and start collecting money. It doesn't say that. Let's say okay.
Yes.
They have that actually. They have the what are they? The gypsies. They show up around Purim time sometimes.
Oh, really?
The gypsies.
Yeah, in Aventura a lot.
Yeah.
What about just what if the guy stole the talis?
Right. Could be stolen. That's why you can't buy it from a hedyot. He says even though we're saying that you're not that you can't sell it to him, you can't give it to him or sell it to him, but that's only. And so why are we worried about that? It's how he got it. He says no, because probably he got it some other way. Even though typically it doesn't go to him, but somehow he got it. You can't buy it from him.
As for Claria, how do you guys sell to? How do you check to see if everybody's a Jew?
You have to bring in a paper from the
Yeah,
Bezdin,
something.
the parents' ksuba before they buy it. Tzitzis. Yeah, you buy it online.
Oh,
They have a very funny picture of this like like a Hispanic like woman wearing a talis tzitzis on the street.
It's like a Walmart thing. Like they have funny pictures of people that's wearing funny clothes in Walmart. What they picked up. Yeah. Oh, someone sent us actually a picture of a Chidon T-shirt, of a Chidon T-shirt on a colored person. It must have ended up in Goodwill,
right.
And they got it, and then but anyway, it becomes humorous. Okay, Rav Yehuda Rami Techilta lePerzumidin Shebesi. This is very interesting. I thought in the Gemara in Sukkah was Rav Amram Chasida. Here it's Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda puts tzitzis on his wife's clothing. Mavarich called Safra Lisatif B'tzitzis. And every morning he makes a bracha also on. This is something separate, right? Every morning he makes a bracha on this tzitzis. Now the problem is like this: you have to look at both of these things and see that they're contradictory. Midirami, the fact that he puts tzitzis on his wife's clothing is kasavar mitzvah seishleis mangrami. Obviously, he holds that tzitzis is by day and by night, and so therefore his wife is chayiv in tzitzis because it's a mitzvah seishleis mangrami. It's a positive command that's not time bound. So if that's the case, so why is he saying a new bracha every morning? If the mitzvah never left him, if the mitzvah is only every day starts again, but it's not on night, every morning you make a new bracha. But if the mitzvah is constant, so why are you saying a new bracha? So right, my answer is Kidder Rebbe. It's like Rebbe. The Tanya started in a brisa. Tefillin kolzman sheminichan mevarich aleim divri Rebbe. So every time you put on the tefillin, you say a bracha. So that's what Rebbe says. So therefore, every time you put it on. The Gemara says, "Yihachi kol shaitanami." So then, why is it just every morning? Maybe in the middle of the day, he goes swimming, he puts it back on. Like, what's the right? It goes to the mikveh, takes it off, puts on, say a new bracha. You said it in the morning, say it again every time you put it on. It says Rabbi Yehuda, inish tzniya havi v'leishar le'liglim kol. You're right, but he never took off his clothing in the middle of the day. He was very modest. The ma'ishna mitzafra. So why does he say it just in the morning? Maybe he says it, but he gets up earlier. Gets before the morning. It says Kimashani Mixus Laila Xus Yaim. Actually, he had to when he would switch from his night clothing to his day clothing, he would say the bracha. Okay, we're up to Tanur Rabbanon, which is a good place to stop. So, okay, it's like 3/4 down on Mem Gimel Amid Aleph. Right?
You change.
Yeah.
Have night on.
Right. Okay, have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Oh, I see.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Today's Friday, right? I'm not